Good morning, everybody. Welcome back after our hiatus in August. I'm so happy to see your smiling faces. It has come to be that time of year when all the clubs are going to be holding their elections for their leadership slots. And this year, we've slightly changed the charter for lifelong learning. There are 4 officer positions and 5 at-large positions actually on the board, but what we need are people who know how to do specific skill things, who will be attached to us, and we need somebody. You have seen those members who have access. You have seen the wonderful videos that Ari makes. Ari's not always going to be available. We need somebody who can learn at the knees of the master. So somebody who's interested in learning how to do the magic with the videos. We need you. We need somebody who who can figure out how to do the work of the treasurer, the work of the program director, and you can't just step up and start doing that from the first day. You need to belong to us and learn how to do it. So we're really interested in reaching out to people who are interested in what we do here. I'm really so pleased with this club and the information that we're able to bring to the community. I would love to have you involved with us in doing that. Now, because we're going to hold the election on November 6th, which is the day of our annual luncheon, and by the way, if you didn't already buy your luncheon ticket, it's $5, and you're going to get a wonderful meal laid out by Yorktown Grill, probably, and I think you'll want to be there just to celebrate with all the people that have come and told us wonderful information all year and each other. So don't miss out on that. So because you're going to do the actual voting on that day, we have to send out by email to the membership a month in advance, which is October 6th. So you have until tomorrow, the 4th, if you're interested. Please write down Mr. John Ackeret's email address, jmsr4. That's really simple. jmsr4@yahoo. Send him your name and what you're interested in, and then we can get that all set up and going, and on the 6th you'll just vote yes, I hope, and nobody will have any kind of hissy fit. But because the rules of all the clubs say you can't do nominations from the floor, I guess there were a couple of clubs that had fist fights or something, but anyway, you're not allowed. So the slate needs to be complete when I send it out on October 6th. So if you're interested, please be in touch with John. And once you're a member, as I said before, access to videos of all of the presentations that we've had would be available to you. And I'm also obliged to tell you that the views that are presented today are the views of the presenters and not necessarily of the club or SCA, so don't sue us if you don't like it.
And thank you, Juanita, and welcome, everyone. I'm glad you're here. Roberta Fernandez just moved here in May, so she's a new Sun City Anthem resident. So be sure and say hello to her wherever you see her around on our campus. She was originally from Florida, and then she lived in Minnesota for quite a while, and her daughter lives here, so she joined her daughter once her daughter got settled. Her daughter's a professor, so they got a lot of brains in that family. She's a board-certified hypnotist, and she's had 11 years of practice, and she has an office here in Henderson. And she will tell you that there's some cards in the back table if you'd like to pursue more of this. She has given a lot of talks and training on hypnosis, education, pain management, stress, fear, and so on. And she, I think, originally started talking about or learning about hypnosis through pain management from the overuse of opioids. So maybe she'll address some of that today. And she wrote a book about that too. So let's welcome Roberta and have a good time.
Good morning, everybody. How many of you think I'm here to make you bark like a dog or quack like a duck? Well, I was, painting the room before I started, and if you're kind of like me, and I think most of you are, don't worry if I do, because in about 20 minutes you're going to forget it anyway, right? All it takes for me is walking into another room. So we're going to get started today. I have a bit of an agenda. This is me. This is some of my many licensings or certifications. But what I wanted to start with is, this is me. This is my daughter, Corey. She graduated and was one of the 3 keynotes from Stanford College of Medicine. She's a neuroscientist. I'm really proud of her. Her and her husband, Andre. And that is on the big dog is my grand dog, Bear, and Lily and Gracie are my dogs. So they are here, and my next door neighbor is here, and she's just like, oh yeah, those are her dogs. They make noise. No, they're not too bad. So we do have an agenda today, because when I talked to Jackie about what do these people want to know, I thought I could do something on pain management, which I'm sure affects almost everybody in the room, or sleep. But I think the best way to start is understanding what hypnosis is and isn't. So this is my goal for you today, and I'm going to set my clock so that I don't run over time. First, let's start with some myths. Number 1, I cannot hypnotize you against your will. Even if you're a client of mine, if I saw you in the grocery store and went up and said, sleep, you're going to look at me like, really? You have to be a willing participant. I wish I had that kind of power, because I'd have a lot of fun if I could do that. But the fact of the matter is that I don't. I can't make you do anything you don't want to do. You're not going to tell me deep, dark secrets unless that's what you really want to tell me. And I also, you don't have to worry about getting stuck. That makes for good movie stuff. But it really isn't like that in real life. So the worst that could happen with hypnosis is it just doesn't work for you. There's no side effects. There's nothing bad that can happen. It just might not work as well for you. Also, I've had several people in the room already tell me, I don't think I can be hypnotized. By the end of the day, you're going to realize you do it to yourself every day, all day. So we're going to talk about that. And I also don't have any special powers. I can't read your mind. I'm not psychic. I can't make you lift 100,000 pounds if you're a weightlifter when you only have the capacity to lift 200. Again, if I could do all those things, my daughter would have taken out the trash every day. My husband would have, done all these things. But no, that only happens in a Geico commercial. So what is hypnosis? All hypnosis is self-hypnosis. I am just a guide, because you don't know how to get into that state, perhaps intentionally. I help guide you there, and like I say, you do this every day. It's nothing more than a heightened state of awareness and focus where you're open to new thoughts and new ideas. How many of you, raise your hand, if you've been in the car going somewhere, you get to your destination, and you don't remember how you got there? Has it ever happened to anybody in this room? Yeah, we've all been driving a long time. We affectionately call this highway hypnosis. But the reality is it happens all the time. You might be taking a long walk. You might be gardening. You might be cooking. You might be singing. You might be praying. These are all times when you are very focused on what you're doing. When you're watching television or a movie, I used to joke, I could have stood naked in front of my husband during a football game, and he would look right through me and not even see me, because we let everything else just kind of fade into the background, and we get very involved in whatever it is that we're doing. So when you think about hypnosis like that, most people in my office, they're like this in the chair, right? But that is not really how it is in real life. It's just that heightened state of awareness and focus. So, scientifically, we know what happens in the brain. With the advent of fMRI, there's been thousands of research papers published on hypnosis. We know what happens in the brain, what speeds up, what slows down, where it is. It's really validated what I do for a living. But science shows us that there's four states of consciousness that we have. And I just want to talk to you about what that means to you. Right now, hopefully, none of you have fallen asleep yet. You're in what we call the beta state. And this is our waking state, our conscious state. Alpha is the first state of trance. And what this really means from a science perspective is it's describing how fast the neurons in your brain are firing. So when we're in beta, they're really going. When we're in alpha, they start to slow down a little bit. You're in alpha trance sometimes when you drive. Now, don't think that's scary, because the subconscious mind, it's really what's driving your car anyway. You don't think, you don't think about putting your blinker on and how to move your foot from the brake to the gas. It's all automated. Everything that we do pretty much in our day, our brain automates. So alpha is that first light state of trance. We call it the daydreaming state. Theta is where I work with my clients. It's a much deeper state of trance, which means basically that you're just more open. Your conscious mind is sitting over there watching and listening, but it doesn't really care, okay? And then finally, delta. We used to think that hypnosis was sleep. It's what it means in Greek, but we know that it is not a state of sleep. So what I'm trying to tell you with all of this is that hypnosis is something that you naturally do. It's not something that you have to believe in. It is just how your brain functions. And while there still is mystery to it in that we don't really understand some of the mechanisms that happen, we understand a lot more about what's going on in the brain when you're in this hypnotic state. So basically, when you have a trance state, alpha or theta, and you're giving suggestions, and by the way, the most powerful suggestions you ever will receive are the ones you're giving to yourself. So when you're saying in the middle of the night, I can't sleep, guess what you're suggesting to yourself? I can't sleep. And also know that your subconscious mind doesn't hear negatives. So when I have people that want to come in and lose weight, and if I were to tell them, I'll never eat pizza, you'll never eat pizza again, what their subconscious mind hears is, you'll eat pizza again. Because the subconscious mind does not process negatives very well. So always focus on what you want, and we're going to talk about why that's important in a minute. So I'm going to show you a simple model of your mind so that you begin to understand the actual power you really have and why it's important for all of us to be able to tap in to that deeper part of us. So we think our conscious mind's the bomb, right? It's how we function, it's where we make our decisions, but it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's that part of our awareness that we are actually perceiving. But where your really powerful part of the mind is what's below the surface, your subconscious mind. So let's break this down. This is your brain. No, I'm just teasing, but it is kind of a depiction of your brain. I'm going to go through so that you understand the differences between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind, because it's the first part in understanding how to take advantage of the power of your mind. So let's look at the conscious mind. Scientists have shown and proven that the conscious mind is really only about 5% of your brain's processing power. That's it. And yet we think it's the most powerful part of our mind. It's not. On your best given day, you can process consciously 7 to 9 things. After that, things start falling through the cracks. Quality starts to erode. You forget this, or it just doesn't turn out as good as you had hoped. So we expect a lot of our conscious mind, and it really isn't all that strong. It is where we make our decisions. The conscious mind is logical. It's analytical. It has to have a reason for everything. It needs to figure stuff out. You know how bothered you get when you can't figure something out, right? So what happens with the conscious mind is we'll take a little bit of truth and we'll make it work for us, because then we can satisfy ourselves because we figured it out, okay? It is the place where we judge. It is also the home to our short-term memory. It's what enables me to pick up this clicker and not look at it and go, what is this? or pick up your phone when it rings and not know what to do with it. Short-term memory. Now, if we compare the conscious mind to the subconscious mind, they are polar opposites. Now, I divide the subconscious mind into two, the subconscious and the unconscious. Because a lot of times you hear those terms used interchangeably. I believe there's a big difference. The unconscious mind, I assign the bodily processes. Your unconscious mind is doing hundreds of thousands of things in a second, and you're not even aware of them. All of the systems, nervous system, circulatory system, everything that's happening in your brain, we're not aware of any of that going on. It regulates our breath, and thank goodness, or we would get so busy we would forget to breathe, right? Hey, well, we can control our breath. We'll talk about that in another session. But it really is important to realize that. Why? Because the unconscious mind is the body, is how our conscious mind and our subconscious mind communicate. So let's just talk about that subconscious mind. Like I said, it's the polar opposite. It's the home of our wants versus the home of our shoulds. Right there, there's a big, huge difference. It is home to our imagination, to your beliefs about life, to your rules about life. All of your memories are there. Everything you've ever learned, you've heard, you've seen, you've tasted, you've touched, it's all in there. And I know a lot of you are thinking, but what about happens when I get dementia or Alzheimer's? Again, that's another topic, but trust me, it's still there. You know, if you've watched people with dementia, they seem to regress into their childhood because they're accessing all those memories in there. We don't understand why that's happening, but that is what's happening. All those memories are there. It is the place of your intuition. So the other thing about the subconscious mind is it learns very differently than the conscious mind. It processes differently. You have to talk to it differently. Your conscious mind knows what don't or never means. Your subconscious mind doesn't even hear that word. It's very literal. It is why every 4 years, come on in, the water's fine. It's all good. So it is why when you're 4 years old, you all have maybe grandchildren. Raise your hands, you have grandchildren, yeah. That 4-year-old believes that Santa Claus delivers presents all around the world on the same night, comes down the fireplace even though we don't have one. And they don't even question that it's logical or not. Why? Because there's something called the critical factor. And this critical factor forms at around the age of 7 or 8. I founded a Montessori school in Tampa many years ago, and we had children 3 to 12. I clearly saw this development in the children around that age. The critical factor is a gatekeeper, and it's a blessing and it's a curse. The reason why it's a blessing is because, think about it, if we were to take this pyramid and turn it upside down and take away that gatekeeper, all of that stuff that's in our subconscious mind, my 65 years of stuff would just flood into that consciousness, which can only handle 7 things at a time. I wouldn't be able to know, I wouldn't be able to make a decision about what to wear in the morning. It would be overwhelming to me. So the critical factor keeps out things that don't align with our belief system. The problem with that belief system is, guess when it was formed? When we were really little. Because once the critical factor starts forming, that gate gets taller and taller and taller. And by the time we're in our 20s, it's there. So the negative, the downside to the critical factor is it really is resistant to letting other things in. And it prevents us from accessing what's in there to begin with. So a lot of times, you may not even know why a song comes on the radio and you start crying. You've gotten triggered by something and you don't even know what it is. All that emotion that is in the subconscious mind, until it's satisfied, it's still there. It's still there. So the critical factor serves a valuable purpose, but it also can be a hindrance in helping us push beyond things. So let's move forward talking about this thing called the mind and the brain. Another thing the scientists tell us that they know for sure, because they've done thousands of experiments with this, is the brain cannot tell the difference between what is real and what is vividly imagined. And I'm going to give you an example of one of those experiments. Neuroscientists got together, a bunch of people. They divided them into two groups. They measured all their finger strength. Group A, they said, we want you to go home, and for 10 minutes a day for 30 days, we want you to do this. We want you to exercise your finger just like this. With Group B, they said, this is what we want you to do. We want you to go home, we want you to hold your finger up. I want you to close your eyes, and we want you to imagine moving your finger with a personal trainer in the background yelling, harder, harder. So 30 days later, they all come back. The scientists measure finger strengths. As expected, the group that had actually done the work had increased strength by 30%. Now, I'm going to give you a hint. The group that had imagined it also had increased strength. Who wants to guess by how much? 60, 10, what else? 15, 22%. 22%. And they never moved their finger. Why? Because they were imagining it so vividly. And what happens when you do that, the brain thinks it's happening. So what did it do? It sent an electrical impulse to stimulate the muscles in the finger. Athletes have known this for years with guided visualization. They imagine themselves in their sport doing it perfectly. It creates muscle memory. It creates the ability to do it when they're called on immediately. This is hypnosis. It's nothing more than visualizing what you want. My initial instructor told me hypnosis is your ability to convince yourself or unconvince yourself of just about anything. And let me tell you, you guys do that every single day. We all do. It's a natural state of mind. The takeaway from this is your thoughts become things. So you need to choose your thoughts wisely. Every time you focus on the pain or the lack of sleep or whatever your issue is, it becomes your reality. And this is why. FAIR is an acronym. I named my business after this because when my first hypnosis class, I learned about the 4 laws of the mind. And I thought it was so profound, I named my business after it. It stands for focus, associate, repeat, and expect. What you focus on expands. So it's really important, if you are getting results that you don't like, you need to look at what you're focused on. And in hypnosis, we focus on solutions. I spend maybe 20% of my time with my clients focusing on the problem. Just because they need to see it clearly, I need to know how to help them best. But we really want to focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Einstein said, we can't solve today's problems with the same level of thinking that got us there. This is true for each one of us. When you are immersed in the problem, you cannot possibly see the solution. So always, always focus on what you want. Second is associate. What happens with people is that when we are so focused on what we don't want, and I know there's a couple smokers in the room because you've asked me already to talk about this, and I'm going to use you as an example. And the reason is not to pick on you, but it's just easy to illustrate. Almost every single smoker I have ever had has said something very similar to me. And they'll say something like, oh, I just love getting up in the morning, having a cup of coffee with breakfast, reading the paper. Now, what is associated with that cigarette? Getting up, eating, drinking, reading. All of those things become triggers to that behavior. Okay, yeah, everybody's like, yeah, you get it. And it's not just for smokers, it's everything that we do. We set up unintentionally triggers for our behaviors. When we repeat them often enough, especially with passion, what did that smoker say? I just love, hate, fear, really strong emotions. When you do that, they become who you are. People will say, I am a smoker, or I'm a non-smoker. I'm an alcoholic. I'm a gambler. I'm this, I am that. Whatever comes after those two simple words, I am, is how you define yourself. So it's really important that we're not making these repetitive mistakes, that we're looking at what we want to focus on, creating positive triggers to help us maintain that focus, and repeating those actions, because the subconscious mind learns through repetition. The conscious mind hates repetition. We get bored very quickly. But this is how the subconscious mind learns. So we want to make sure the beliefs are aligned with your goals. And then finally, you get exactly what you expect you will. Why? Because of that critical factor. Your expectations, nothing's going to let it through unless you change your expectations. So we want to make sure that your expectations are aligned with your goals too. So when you look at these 4 laws of the mind, focus, associate, repeat, and expect, as a hypnotist, I look at each one of those. I listen to what you're saying, and I say, where's the best place to intervene to get the biggest bang for your buck, right? With most people, it is where they're focused. But some people, it's really identifying their triggers. People might come to me because they're being triggered all the time, so we need to find out what that is. So the 4 laws of the mind, super, super important. Now, one of the questions I get most often is, does this work? So I've decided to tell you a couple stories, my own stories. I came to hypnosis because of pain, and I know a lot of you have probably had hip issues or knee issues. It's, the bodies get old, and we're not very nice to them during our life, and they wear out, right? Thank goodness medical technology allows us to replace them. We get new parts, just like our car. I had both of my knees replaced at the same time. I did not take any pain meds. I just used self-hypnosis, and I was totally comfortable. Now, can everybody do this? No, not everybody. I was a hypnotist when it happened, but I came to hypnosis because of pain in my knees. And the hypnotist, in like 3 sessions, I didn't have pain anymore. It is possible. Everybody has different degrees of success with this, but what I can tell you, in my 11 years of doing thousands of sessions, I have only ever had 1 client, and it just happened last year. I broke my streak. That she did not get any pain relief. Now, there was reasons for that, but it was very disappointing to me that I couldn't help her. I have been able to help people to varying degrees, but always to some degree. You have to want the change. Remember what I said earlier, hypnosis is not a belief, it's how your mind works. The key to being successful with hypnosis is to really want the change. When I met the hypnotist and I had pain in my knees, I couldn't even walk to the grocery store. He said, well, do you want to be out of pain? And I looked at him and I just started laughing. I thought that was the stupidest question I had ever heard. But it wasn't, because sometimes our pain benefits us more than the solution. And so examining what our thoughts are, remember the 4 laws of the mind, our belief system, how we're processing all of it, sometimes our pain gets us things that are very rewarding to us. So it's a very valid question. You have to want the change that you're seeking. You don't have to, and I would tell you, I'm the last port of call for most people. They come to me when nothing else has worked, which is really unfortunate, but it's reality. So I would guess, unless they've been referred to me by another client that had success, probably 100% of the people that come to me don't believe it's going to work. And if they want the change, it works for them. The other thing hypnosis has done for me is it saved my life. 5 years ago on Labor Day, I was in a parking garage underground. I fell and I cut an artery in my leg. And I was literally bleeding out in the parking garage. It was a very interesting experience. right away, I knew I was in trouble. And I started doing my breath. This is the thing I teach all my clients, to calm myself so I didn't go into shock, so I could keep a clear head and know what to do. I went back to my car. I got a blanket out of the trunk, because I'm in Minnesota. We always have a blanket in the trunk. And wrapped it around my leg, put it up, laid down in the back seat, and immediately put myself into a trance state. Because you can control your heart rate, you can control your blood pressure, and you can control blood flow with hypnosis. And I focused. There's a Kansas City study that showed this clearly. And by the time the paramedics got there, 25 minutes later, I had almost stopped the bleeding. Hypnosis literally saved my life. What else did hypnosis do? I wrote a book during COVID. It actually is a really good book. I'd never written a novel before. It's getting a lot of attention, and it got picked up. 9 publishers wanted it. And I did it all in hypnosis. I didn't know what was going to happen either. I was just as excited as my readers to find out what was going to come next. So from a creativity perspective, I work with a lot of performers, musicians, artists, writers. It really helps. Remember, subconscious mind is that's the home of the imagination. So really powerful. And this was me. Yes, this was me. About 5 years ago. So does hypnosis work? The answer is yes, it works, if you want the change you seek. So how do you tap into the subconscious mind? This is perfect timing. So today, I am giving everybody in this room a big gift. It's called Conscious Napping, and it is a guided visualization app with over 180 different recordings in English and Spanish. And all of these things I have used with my clients. I originally developed this as a support tool, and now I sell it as an employee benefit, and I'm allowing you to have that benefit today. And what I'd like to do, for those of you that would like to participate, I'm going to do a little conscious napping with you today. So if you will give me 5 minutes of your time, because we have it, so I can do it, and you would like to experience guided visualization, all you have to do is put your feet flat on the floor and get comfy in your chair. For those of you that don't want to participate, that's totally fine, but there'll be no harm, I promise. It's just very relaxing. So I'd like you just to take a nice deep breath and close your eyes. There you go. And just take a nice belly breath in and slowly exhale. Good. And just allow that relaxation to come. And as I count from 5 to 1, it's as if with each number, you can allow your mind and body to double your relaxation. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And just imagine that you're walking along a beautiful beach. The sun is warm, the water is just cool enough. Down the beach, people are playing in the water. Seagulls call out overhead. Perhaps you taste the salt on your lips, hear the waves crashing on the shore. And you notice in the sand, someone has written the numbers 5 to 1. Now you walk over to the number 5, and you lightly, easily glide your foot across the number 5, and the number 5 fades away. You wonder, could the same thing happen with the number 4? So you walk over to the number 4, and a little voice in your head says, go ahead, it's no big deal. And you lightly, easily slide your foot across the number 4, and the number 4 fades away. Now you've discovered something remarkable, leaving you calm, relaxed. And you walk over to the number 3, And as you start to slide your foot across, the water comes in, just barely touching your toes. It's cool and wonderful. And the water does some of the work for you. And the number 3 fades away, and you relax even more. And you look back up the beach, and you remember that the numbers 5, 4, and 3 were once etched into the sand, but now it's smooth and flat, the way it was meant to be. But now you feel as though you haven't finished yet. Oh, and this is not your way of doing things. You persist. So you walk over to the number 2, and as your foot begins to slide across the sand, the water comes in and covers your toes. Refreshing and wonderful. And it does most of the work for you. And the number 2 fades away, and you feel lighter, comfortable, happier. And you go to the number 1, and before you can even begin to slide your foot across it, the water comes in and does all the work for you. And the number 1 fades away, and you feel satisfied. You look back at the beach sand, smooth, normal, as it was meant to be. And everything makes sense now. And as you walk down the beach to have fun with your friends, you're fully aware of what you've learned from the sand. And when you're ready, open your eyes and enjoy how relaxed and refreshed you feel. And when I count from 1 to 3 and snap my fingers, you will emerge 1, 2, and 3, coming into the room fully alert. Now raise your hand if you feel a little better than you did 5 minutes ago. Yeah. How many people thought that you could have been there for a half an hour? Yeah. So that's one of the signs of that trance state. A minute feels like an hour. And it's so relaxing. So I wanted to give you this taste of conscious napping. You'll be able to download this app from the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store. It is wonderful. It's this icon, the iceberg, okay? All you do is type in conscious napping. It's the only one like it. You're not going to find another one. You're going to ask it to create a new account, and then you're going to enter this code. So for those of you that you can take a picture of it, that's great. If you don't have pencil to write it down, my cards are in the back of the room. You can email me. I'm happy to send you the code. On this app, you're going to find lots of things that will benefit you. Whoops, sorry about that. You're going to find courses, content that's delivered as I'm controlling it to you, on stress, sleep. This is designed to listen to when you're in bed, going to sleep. It's wonderful. Weight, pain management, and then smoking and chewing cessation. These sessions, as I said, they're a little more general because I don't know who's listening on the other end. If you need something super specific, that needs to be done one-on-one. But this work is amazing. You're also going to find 3 areas of well-being. And these programs you can access anytime, any place. They're short, 10 minutes or less. You're going to find things from procrastination and grief and fear through tinnitus or teeth grinding or headaches. Oh my gosh, if you get headaches, this is 4 minutes. It will be gone. Be patient with yourself and listen frequently. And remember, your subconscious mind learns through repetition. So the more you listen, the more benefit you're going to get from these tools. There's something in here for everyone, and if you have an idea that you don't find in there, email and let me know and I'll create it. I'm always adding to this app. There's always new content that are available. So what you listened to was called For Your Interpretation. So if you want to have a repeat of this and experience it again, the reason why I call it this is when I design this, I usually write out a script for the app, and I sit on it for a few days, and I go back and I look at it, and I had a specific intention, an issue that I wanted to address with that recording. And when I went back and I looked to edit it, I thought, oh, wait a minute, this could be used for something else. So I sent it out to 6 or 7 people I know, and I told them, I said, before you listen, I want you to think of an issue you're having, and then listen to it and let me know what you think. Oh, they all loved it, and they all had different issues. So what I find with this particular recording is that depending on what is bothering you at the moment, you might interpret this recording very differently. My guess is that each one of you took away something different from the sand today. So I have time now. I thought it was going to be after the meeting, but we have time for questions, and I want to make sure, Jackie, how much time do I have? I have 5 minutes yet, or am I done? I have 10 minutes. Oh, good. Question back there. Yes, and I'll repeat it. Oh, good. We have a mic. Perfect. Excellent.
It was an outstanding presentation. I've been a student of mind, body control,
Thank
for
you.
40 years, starting with Dr. Herbert Berenson. I'm sure you've probably read his book from Harvard 40 years ago. Anyway, I'm going to put the hard one to you.
Yeah.
I've seen a number of stage hypnotists who've done things that, unless there's shills in the audience, I mean live and in person,
Yep.
they get somebody out of the audience and do things that I wouldn't do, but strength things and all kinds of, how do they do that?
So that's a really valid question, especially being here in Vegas. For a while, I thought stage hypnotists were the bane of my existence. They just always bringing up those kinds of questions, right? And I will say that in every profession, whether you're a car salesman, doctors, lawyers, hypnotists too, you have some people that are ethical and some people that are not. Yes, there can be shills in the audience, for sure. However, I will say this. People, we all have a side of us that we're not willing maybe in public to let come out for whatever reason. I have never allowed myself to go on the stage and be hypnotized because I just don't want to do that in front of my peers. That's just who I am, right? I have those inhibitions and reservations. But sometimes it's really nice to be able to let that side of you come out and play and then blame it on the hypnotist and say they made me do it. You know, that's a really deep discussion, and I thank you for asking that because it does appear that those people are being controlled by the hypnotist. That's the whole point of it, is to perceive that control. And the hypnotist wants a good show. I actually took a stage class recently, and it was really enlightening for me to learn how the hypnotist chooses those people. They're only going to choose people that they know are willing to get up and have them make a fool of themselves, because that's the show, right? It's about having fun. And you'll notice that at any given time, of all those people on the stage, some are participating and some are not. And a stage hypnotist is very skilled at recognizing the people on the stage and who's going to participate and who won't. He won't call on them to do certain things. He will actually send them off the stage too if they've stopped, because you always have control. Now, you saw in here, and not picking on you, I think it's wonderful. You guys are great hypnotic candidates. Sometimes, you know, people go very, very deep very quickly. And every person that a stage hypnotist is bringing up on the stage is exactly like that. That they are highly hypnotizable. And remember that none of them are up there against their will. When they go up there, they know what's going to happen, and they have consented to that. So did that help? Any other questions? Yes, back here. Terry. No, that was behind you, Terry. Sorry. Oh, I almost got the name right.
That was good. I remember that.
You talked about crying over songs that you hear on the radio and that the mind doesn't differentiate between what's real and imagined.
Yes.
So would that be the explanation then for poignant movies, crying during movies and crying over commercials and things like that?
So there's a couple of reasons for that. First of all, when you are movies, television, we suspend belief. We take on the role of that character. That is a hypnotic state. That's a trance state. For most people, that's alpha trance, where that happens. It happens very quickly and very easily. I'm a big one, right? About crying at sad movies, like The Notebook. Oh my gosh, I can't even think about that movie without crying. Oh gosh. I'm one that I cannot, if I'm going to watch a scary movie, I have to be in the theater, because if I'm at home, I'm running to the kitchen to get food every 5 minutes, right? I just can't do it. It affects me so much. But I let that happen. There's another reason why people will cry a lot, and that is something totally different. That has to do with emotion. Remember that I talked about, and this is a little bit of a deep explanation, but I think it's worth talking about. Emotions drive almost all behavior. It is the thing that drives everything that we do and that we think. And sometimes the wires can get crossed in the mind, but a lot of times it's just triggering old stuff that's never been resolved. The way the subconscious mind communicates with the conscious mind is through the body. So for example, if you're feeling fear, your heart rate might start to go up. The hair on the back of your neck will rise. When you're feeling sad, typically it's crying that happens. There's a lot of ways our body expresses emotion to try to get us to see that there's a need or a desire that we have that's not being met. That's all emotion is, telling us we need something. Something needs to be resolved. And so what happens with the subconscious mind, because it automates everything, and it's very smart, is that when tears get results more often than not, it might always have you crying, because it's trying to get an emotion resolved. And the best way it knows to get what it needs is when it produces tears. So sometimes we end up developing a default emotion. There's a woman, for those of you that are readers, it's called Candace Pert. She's an amazing scientist. She passed a few years ago. It's called Molecules of Emotion. And she actually discovered that every emotion has a chemical signature in our body. And when we don't resolve it, we need to keep feeding it to get that resolution. And she describes the cells as kind of like a lock and a key with these emotions. So it's a super good read on many levels, not just on the science, but she was one of the first women scientists in the NIH, got robbed of a Nobel Prize because we can only have 2 people, I guess, and she was the third wheel, and the other 2 were men, so they got the prize. Did a lot of work on HIV, and it is an interesting book about women and her career, and then how she reconciles her faith with her science. So it's a fascinating book. I really suggest it for any of you who are readers. Yes. Oh, sorry, we got one back there.
So if I want to eliminate sugar from my diet, should I say I will eat everything else but sugar?
No.
To put it
Don't
positively?
focus on the sugar. Don't focus on the sugar. The more you focus on not being able to have it, the more you're going to want it. It's just the way it works. So just healthy eating. In the app, you're going to find a lot of really good suggestions and visualization for healthy eating in the weight program. And you'll see exactly how you should be talking to yourself. Yes.
You say that our belief systems are formed by what age?
No, that's a very good question. And I clearly saw this in the Montessori school. I used to tell parents, and this is before I had training as a hypnotist, long before I had training as a hypnotist. I used to tell my parents in the school, by the time your child is 11 or 12, your work is done in that way. Because your child is who, in essence, they are. Doesn't mean that we can't change, but remember that critical factor? It gets stronger and more formed as we age. For females, early 20s, for males, late 20s, is when we feel that is fully formed. So they're always open, but your role as a parent changes. in how you work with that child. You become more of a support, a sounding board, reassuring. You really could see, and I'll give you an example of how I would first notice it. So a child, let's say you have a little girl, and she's having a tea party with her dolls, and she's having a conversation with them. I mean, you've seen this if you have kids or grandkids, right? They're just immersed in that situation. They only have their subconscious mind. That's their logical mind. Your logic does not start forming until around 7 or 8 years old. Mm-hmm. Literally, the brain cannot logic. It doesn't have that capability. So they're only operating in their subconscious mind, which, remember, is very literal. When you see that shift, the child goes from, well, I know those dolls can't talk, but what if they could? So you still see that sense of imagination, but the logic saying, wow, what could I do with that? What is the potential of that? We're becoming more of a whole person when that starts happening. So it's really important for us to understand, and most of the problems that we have, most of the triggers that we have are stem from when we're less than 5, before that critical factor formed, because we don't have any context of the world. A lot of people that have separation issues, they started when they were in the crib. When mom leaves the room, they don't know what a room is. They don't know what a house is. They don't know that mom is going to sleep. All they know is when they cry, mom's not there. And that's life or death for them. So this idea of context when we were really little creates a lot of problems and misperceptions. For most people, it's not a big deal. They only become problems if they're reinforced over time. Yeah.
So sometimes our belief systems limit us
Yes,
in being
they do.
successful. So I think the hardest part would be becoming aware of those things.
Yes, and it's really hard. Remember that critical factors do not allow us to become aware of what those belief systems are because we can't access them except through hypnosis. And this is why learning to tap into the power of your mind, in conscious napping, you can learn to do that. There's a module called conscious napping, and it is basically self-hypnosis. So learn the breathing technique that I teach you in there and listen to a lot of the recordings, and when you're comfortable with it, then use that conscious napping app to teach yourself self-hypnosis. I teach all my clients how to do this by themselves because you can't get to those old beliefs. You don't even know they're there. You can't. That critical factor keeps you from accessing it. That's the beauty of hypnosis. You can go right there. And the one thing I am absolutely 100% certain of in thousands of sessions is that the subconscious mind always knows what the problem is and it knows how to fix it. Your answers are inside of you. They don't come from me. They're inside of you. Yes?
Hi. We heard from the hypnotist as an adult how she affected her knee pain and got rid of all or most of it. I'd like to just mention something else. If you got grandchildren, this might go to them too. Between ages 8 and 10, I was living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and every winter it would get to be 0 degrees or colder sometimes, and it was really cold. And I just learned on my own, totally on my own, that I could stand outside waiting for a bus to take to school, and I could regulate my body temperature and feelings with my brain. I was only 8 to 10 years old. This was for consecutive years. And what happened was I went to Florida in the winters, actually the month of February and March, to visit my grandpa. And I go to Miami Beach every day, and I get really, really warm and really, really warm. And it was not such a big problem. Then I went back to Milwaukee, then come December, January, and I would get really cold, and I just started thinking of Miami Beach in my brain when it's 0 degrees outside, and I'd get warmer and warmer, and I'd be thinking, oh, it's really warm today, and I'd get so warm I'd have to open up my very thick parka to let some cool air get in, and I could regulate my body at age 8, 9, and 10 when I did that. And I've been able to do it all my life. I mean, I've taken falls like some of you have in the garage or in the house, and you know, where some people would be, call a doctor, call an ambulance, and yeah, I could get bruised because if you break vessels, that's real, you know, physical. But it never hurt me because I could eliminate the thought of pain.
Well, that is a great story. Thank you for sharing. And he's absolutely right. Children, they don't have the inhibitions that we have. This is another negative of the critical factor. And they believe anything is possible. And this belief stays, again, until 20s, where we can influence our children, we can influence ourselves. But the suggestions that you give yourself are the most powerful. And what he's talking about is exactly self-hypnosis. And he's had no training. He just wanted something. Remember what I said? You have to have the desire. When your desire is strong for the change you want, watch it and just sit back and watch it happen. Want it and watch it happen. One of my mentors used to say that all the time. Thank you.
While listening to you, and I'm wondering, I noticed during the exercise how you changed the pace and the tone of your voice.
Yes.
And what I heard was the mom voice. So I'm wondering if you found that females hypnotists do a better job than male hypnotists in...
Oh my gosh, that's a loaded question. The answer is no. And here's the thing too. I have been told I have a nice voice, and I accept that. I listen to my own voice and love it too. But I have heard hypnotists that have horrible voices that still do great work with their clients. Beauty's in the eye of the beholder, same thing for the listener. Not all hypnosis is, I don't talk like that in hypnosis with all my clients. My voice is congruent with what their needs are. So if they're excited, I'm excited. If they're angry, I'm gonna say, yep, let's get that out, right? So, but thank you for that compliment. And men are just as good at it as women are, so thank you. Thank you all for having me. I'm gonna be around so you can ask questions. Thanks.